Hi there, welcome back to the channel where I post every 2 to 3 years and change the format every single time. My name is Taylor Stenhouse, and today I'd like to start with a little bit of oversharing. I am not doing well. Today has been mostly characterized by a pretty nasty anxiety attack and 2 breakdowns, and then a lot of back and forth after that. So it's been an interesting day. I've had a lot to think about. So throughout that experience, I've kind of now entered a state of what I can only assume to be a brief window of hypermotivation, and that is not going to last long, so I'm going to take advantage of it while I had it. I thought I'd like to talk about some of this today through the lens of media. But I didn't want to sit down and write and plan something because I don't think, frankly, this will last that long. So I just want to jump in and talk about it, and we're going to kind of figure that out together as we go. I don't know a lot of what I'm going to talk about today, and we're just going to kind of explore that together through the movies on my shelf. But I do have a gateway, and our topic today is alienation. Alienation is described as feeling disconnected or isolated from society or family or friends, etc. I think it's best summed up in the title of the first movie I'm going to talk about today. Not one on my shelf, but the movie I did watch today in the midst of my little episode here. It's called I Don't Feel at Home in This World Anymore, which I think is, again, a pretty great way to sum it all up. So this movie by Macon Blair is about a woman, a nurse assistant who is robbed, and she is clearly feeling very numb and alienated and from society. A lot of the problem just being that everybody's kind of an a-hole, and nobody cares about each other, and everything's kind of a mess, and those themes aren't relevant today in our society at all. We're past that. We've really moved past that. So thankfully, this movie's really a relic of a bygone era, 2017. We've really moved on from that. But that's definitely something that I think a lot of us can, I'm sure, relate to. It's definitely a lot of what is weighing on me mentally these days, is how everybody kind of seems to suck now, which I'm sure is a bit of recency bias. I'm sure it's kind of always been this way to a degree, and it's also not true. It's cynical, right? Everybody doesn't suck. And therein kind of lies the rub, right? Her narrative is pushed back on. It's like, no, there's good people out there, and it's like, hey, that's great. That's not my median experience day to day, so that doesn't really help me. And now I want to clarify. I have a lot of great people in my life. I have a lot of great community in my life, and those people are an incredible force for good in my life. Nevertheless, that doesn't stop me from being bombarded with just how far we seem to have degraded, even just within the last 6 months. I don't know if this is really true, but it seems like we've gotten a lot worse really quickly. And along with the rapidly crumbling house of cards that is my own life, it doesn't help that the world seems to be rapidly falling apart. And I don't mean to be very doomer about this, but I am going to be a little bit. That's where we're going to start today, and we're going to see if we can find a little hope in there. Maybe that's the purpose of this video. But nevertheless, it's definitely reached a fever pitch today for me, where the problems of my own life and the existential horrors of the world outside of it are kind of colliding and feel oppressive, and like they are crushing me from the outside in. And that's kind of where I'm at today, and what has led me to really want to explore these themes of alienation, because there is nothing that I don't feel stronger than alienation. But I do want to talk about that through the lens of movies. So I don't think I have an incredible amount to say about the title film of today's video. It's really good. I enjoy it a lot. Ultimately, she is able to get some catharsis. Her numbness peaks into rage, into confrontation, into just desperately begging people to be better. It is kind of the wonder, because you stop and think that, right? Like, if I just sit and look someone in the eye that feels like they're acting like a cartoon character, and I just say, hey, why are you doing this? Why are you this way? Can we just be people together? Can we help each other? Because it sounds like, who's going to look at you and say, no, screw you? The unfortunate reality is that is what's going to happen. It's what happens in the movie, and I don't think that's unrealistic. But I love the main character, Ruth. I love her unwillingness to back down from that this is not how the world is supposed to be. And I'm not going to talk about how the world is and should be too much. I'm not really qualified. I know that something is wrong and that I don't like it. We're talking about me today, baby. This is my mental health crisis. So I did enjoy watching the movie today. It was my second watch. I don't know that it truly helped me figure that all out. It more kind of put words to the feelings I was already experiencing. And, again, she does achieve some catharsis by the end. But the progress she makes is in recentering on her community and finding a friend, a partner. In trying to grab back some connection to her own family. So more than anything, that's our starting point for today. In addition to those themes of alienation, what I also want to talk about today are characters that suck a little bit, but in that specific kind of numb, isolated way. We're not talking about Scott Pilgrim today, as much as I love it. But I want to talk about characters that are realistic in their challenges and their struggles, and where they've ultimately landed on how to reclaim their lives, their humanity, and their goodness back. Because I think that's a fundamental belief I want to express in this video, is that we are all flawed, complicated people. Not saying anything crazy here, but we are all flawed, complicated people that all have a little bit of good and a little bit of bad, or a lot of both in us. And it's less of a binary and more of a, how do I reclaim some of that good when the world is beating it out of me, it feels like. Not to take agency away from people's decisions, but how do you reclaim that sense of goodness in a world that kind of hates it to a degree, expects it to a degree, but also hates it. It's kind of a dichotomy, a conflicting dichotomy there. So one such project I want to talk about is Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency. Not on my shelf. I originally wanted to go to my shelf and find movies to talk about, but I think I'm honing in on the message today, the point today. So Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency is probably the most blatant example of everything I'm talking about. I've just recently completed rewatching the first season for an untold amount of times. I don't feel at home in this world anymore. It also stars Elijah Wood, who is so great at this kind of thing. And he's the centerpiece of that theme in Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency. He is a regular, normal guy who has kind of destroyed his own life to a degree upon a web of lies that he has built. So over the course of the season, the decisions that he's made before the show and how that has affected his people kind of all come together and crumble in front of him and destroy his life that was not really worth living in the first place. And that's the most interesting part, is he had a life, and a lot of those bad decisions that he made were years in the past, but they all culminated with him living in a crappy apartment with a crappy job with no money, and the innate desire to do good, but the excuses in his head that his situation demands him to do what he has to do to survive, regardless of the moral implications. Nothing crazy, nothing major, but something like giving rent money to his meth head landlord and then sneaking into his landlord's place later to take the money back. Things like that. There are larger things he's done, but I'm going to try and not get into big spoilers here. I love the show, and I highly recommend you watch it. The most interesting theme within that, though, that I want to talk about is this is somebody who has isolated himself through the lies he's made. He has alienated essentially everyone in his life except for his sister, who he is still lying to. And then he's confronted with somebody that demands he be his friend. Now, Todd doesn't want that. Todd doesn't think he deserves friends. It's also a strange man coming in and saying, hey, be my detective's assistant. So there's a little more going on there as well. But at the end of the day, the subtext here is Todd thinks he does not deserve friends. He barely thinks he deserves the sister. He probably doesn't think that at all, but he is helping her, and he thinks that makes it better. All of these themes culminate after everything completely crumbles around him in an episode called Fix Everything, and we are getting into light spoilers here, where, just not to touch on any specific plot details, but time travel doesn't fix anything. And that forces him to confront that he can't, not through time travel and not through what he thought by helping his sister, financially supporting her, winning the lottery, paying for things. The decisions he's made and the lies that he's told have alienated himself permanently until he is able to take responsibility for those actions and begin the slow, agonizing work of fixing himself. Because it wasn't the things he did that needed fixing, it was himself, which I think is really a beautiful culmination of these themes. Todd does something that I've done at points in my life where I've gone, over small, inconsequential things, right? Where I've gone, I'm a bad person. Or, in a situation where I didn't like how I acted, I'm like, well, I'm just a jerk, and that sucks. And Todd is confronted with this narrative of, hey, you shouldn't be my friend, I'm an a-hole, I'm a jerk. And his friend Dirk Gently tells him, hey, I'd appreciate if you stop talking about yourself that way. You've done some crappy things, but you are trying to be good. I know you, I know the core of you. You are using that as an excuse, as a crutch to hide behind, because Todd hasn't come to terms with his actions, so he can't truly move on from them. He can't truly internalize them, process them, and move on. So Todd has to finish the process of blowing up his life. He has to admit to the lies that he's told and the things that he's done, and let people react to that how they will, and then fix himself. So, without the ability to know if any of that made any coherent sense, I think it's time for a little bit of a tea break. I made some Cloud9 Rooibos tea that has been sitting in a container for about a decade. So it's pretty good. It worked out. It's been more than a decade. So we veered off course a little. I started talking about alienation, and I've started talking about how a person can alienate themselves with their own decisions and what it takes to kind of retain your goodness and work back from that. And now I am a religious person. I am a Christian, and that is kind of a large can of worms to add to what we're talking about today, so it's not an aspect of this that I'm really going to dig deeply into. I did just kind of want to mention that is part of where my perspective comes from, and it is an integral part of my perspective. But as I stand here and I look around my room, I understand that I have filled my shelves with media about characters that just don't feel right. Something is wrong in their lives. In fact, right on the top of my shelf, we've got an entire series dedicated to a group of people that had to end up on a mysterious island because their lives were wrong until they stepped foot on it. I am, of course, talking about Lost. We're talking about Lost. And I've got plenty of others. One of my favorite graphic novels over here, Mr. Miracle, is touches on a superhero who is drafted into the interplanetary war he comes from and forced to be a general, and the entire world is wrong around him. We could spend a whole video touching on that, so I won't today. But there is definitely plenty of that on the shelf, and let's see what else we can kind of dig into here. Some quick hits. The Matrix is a movie about, of course, now understood as a trans allegory. You can draw pretty obvious connections there. Reality is wrong, right? In the case of this film, literally reality is wrong. It's a simulation. And in the terms of its allegory, which I do think, well, it's not for me to say. The directors have said it applies to their experience as trans women, but it also applies to that general feeling of unease, malaise in your own life. And I want to transition that into talking about a movie I saw last year that ruined my life just a little bit. It's not on my shelf yet, unfortunately. I saw The TV Glow. Similarly is made by a trans woman who has said that, yes, this film is in parts and ways a reflection of her experience because that is her life, so of course it's going to be. But it wasn't necessarily intended solely to reflect that. And I think you can absolutely see that in the film because it is relaying a more general theme. The theme of alienation, the theme of isolation, the theme of stagnation, which is where we're going to transition into from alienation. Stagnation is something that has really oppressively consumed the life of the main character in this film. And I'll try not to get into any heavy spoilers, but I am going to talk about the themes of the whole movie, not necessarily the story and the plot points. Though this is a movie steeped in its themes, it's really the point. Because if alienation is the root cause, stagnation is the symptom. It's not just something is wrong with my life. It is, I am wrong with my life. It is burying who you are to a degree. Stagnation within the specific lens of this film. Denying it. And again, you can see how that obviously translates to the trans experience, but it is a very general theme that works apart from that, and it hit me like a freight train when I saw this film. It is a movie that slaps you in the face and tells you, don't be content with where you are in your life, because it's a fate worse than death if you're denying yourself. I think that can really translate into creativity, into just denying that and just going through the motions of your life, clocking in, clocking out, just living your life and doing nothing beyond that. And yeah, I feel a little personally attacked over that one, because I do feel like I am a deeply creative person that lacks a lot of the time the drive and motivation to act on that creativity. And this movie kind of grabs you by the shoulders and tells you, stop. Like, this is, do you want your life to look like this? Because this is sad and pathetic. You know? That's harsh, but I'm really talking to myself here. And it is what the movie's saying to you. It's saying, hey, you pathetic little loser, you are not content. I know you. And I know you're freaking miserable sitting here on this couch watching TV day in and day out, you know? I know you're miserable, not acting on your creativity, and it doesn't have to be creativity, on your passions, on what makes you you at a fundamental, at a core level. Because that's what stagnation is denying what makes you you. It's what alienation is. It's denying what makes you you in the greater context of the world and community. The only way to dig out of stagnation and alienation is to embrace every part of yourself. That could be a trillion things. For me, that is my creativity. That is a fundamental part of myself that I deny myself frequently in favor of sitting on the couch and watching TV, playing video games, clocking in, clocking out. Are there cultural contributions to the feelings of alienation, to the feeling of stagnation, to the feeling of something in my life isn't right? Something is wrong here on a fundamental level. Absolutely. But the only place that starts is within yourself. So I spent a good chunk of the start of this video talking about the crappy state of the world, how that can lead people to do nothing but survive at the expense of their friendships, their community, which leads to alienation. But at the end of the day, the agency is all within ourselves. That didn't come from the world. It's a contributor, but it's a convenient excuse. It's only more and more convenient every single day with everything getting worse. People getting worse. But if you're getting worse, that's a choice that you're making. That's a decision that you have made. And the only way to dig out of that is to accept your flaws, accept the decisions that you've made. Be honest with yourself and others about who you are and in general, and then begin the slow and agonizing process of each and every day making tiny little incremental steps. Steps in being a better person, steps in being who you want to be, steps in reclaiming your own life. And I realize it almost sounds like we're getting into a little like woo-woo self-help area, you know, be yourself, be your best, easy to say, right? But no, it's not easy. It's monumentally difficult because the world is constantly trying to beat it out of you. But these films remind me that the alternative is worse than death. That's why I'm standing in front of you today. That's why I'm filming this video, because the only way I could reclaim a piece of myself, a piece of my goodness today, a piece of my humanity, after the mental anguish I experienced in the morning, was to do something, you know, anything. To sit here and record this video and talk about a few movies that I love and the way that they make me feel. Because that's who I am. I'm somebody who sees reflections of themselves in the media that they consume, and that is how I process, and that is how I work through things. Now, you can make fun of that all you want. You're maybe not wrong for it, but it's who I am. It's who I am. And I'm going to embrace that, not deny it. I'm going to continue to use that to work through my issues. And just as I'm using this video to process something that until 30 minutes ago was not processable for me. But we've arrived at something here. The antidote to alienation, to stagnation, to feeling like you're just a crappy person that can't get ahead no matter what they do. The antidote to that, well, I still don't know it. I still don't know it. I'm not going to crack that case in 30 minutes. Sorry to be a little anticlimactic, but I don't have the answer for you. But, the start is to figure out what makes you, what makes you tick on a fundamental level. For me, that is my creativity, my passion. Something that growing up as a child, I was told to, be quiet. Not by my parents, they're lovely people. But by schools, by classmates, it's annoying. It's obnoxious. You know what? Maybe it was. But in trying to bury that piece of myself to be more palatable and presentable to people, to be a normal functioning member of society, I lost the core of myself, It's only when I started embracing that I started to get that back. And now I stand here in a period of unbelievable alienation and stagnation that I feel, despite so many wonderful things in my life and wonderful people. And the only way that I could reclaim a piece of myself, that I could triumph just a little bit over those feelings, that I could make an incremental change in how I felt, was standing here in front of this camera and talking about movies. Talking about how they made me feel. Talking about how they helped me process. That's my victory today. Hope you're able to find yours. So, a few days ago from now, that morning when I recorded this video, when I had that initial anxiety attack, the way that I came down from that was by dropping my phone on the ground without thinking, walking straight for the door and outside for as long as I could, about an hour. I just walked. At a certain point, I started repeating something to myself over and over, out loud, like a psychopath. And when I got back, I wrote it down on a whiteboard, my determination for what I needed to do. These are the same words spoken by Todd in Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency for roughly the same purpose. Those words are fix everything. And these words are so important in that show that they were even the title of that episode. It's this idea that we can magically make everything better in a single go without changing anything, without addressing the problems, without addressing anything within ourselves, any of the hurt that we caused others or ourselves. Fixing everything would make it all okay, would save us from our sins. In the show, that's represented through time travel, but it's fake. It doesn't work. It's a hollow mantra that we will never achieve. It's the wrong message. I was showing this video to a friend, and he reminded me of something from I Saw the TV Glow. The main character has the luxury of literally being shown what is potentially missing from his life, what he's always felt, and how to get it back. But it's scary. It represents literally and figuratively the death of life as he knows it. A life where he knows something is missing, he knows something is wrong, he knows he's denying himself. A miserable, crappy life where he knows something is wrong, but it's still a life. And he lets the risk of losing that life prevent him from accepting himself, from who he's supposed to be. But even after living the rest of his life miserable, the movie still wants you to leave it with its penultimate message in mind. And it's better than fix everything. It's not an empty platitude I can give you to fix your life, to fix yourself, to fix alienation and stagnation. It's more meaningful than an empty promise. And it's the same message that I want to leave you with here today. Oh, and go for a walk every day. Long or short, doesn't matter. It might just fix you.